The first time I heard the bells, I thought someone was buried alive, but the villagers didn't run toward the sound. They locked their doors and waited, because in Black Hollow, the bells never rang for the living. I arrived in Black Hollow in the winter of 1873. The journey had been long, the kind that leaves your bones aching and your thoughts restless. I had been sent by the Crown to document abandoned settlements, villages erased by famine, disease, or something less explainable. Black Hollow wasn't on any official map, but it was whispered about. That's why I chose it. When I reached the village, I found it intact. Too intact. The houses stood firm, chimneys cold but not collapsed. Doors slightly open, as if people had stepped out for a moment and never returned. No signs of struggle, no decay, just absence. And at the center of the village, a church. The church was older than everything around it. Stone walls blackened not by fire, but by time or something worse. A tall bell tower rose above it, crooked slightly, like a spine bent under unseen weight, and inside the tower, a rope, fresh. That was the first thing that unsettled me, because someone had been ringing that bell. Recently, I stayed in one of the cottages. Night fell quickly. The kind of darkness that feels thick, almost physical, and then the bells rang, slow, heavy. Each toll felt like it pressed against my chest. I rushed outside. But there was no one in the tower, no movement, no light. Yet the bell continued, dong, 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 until suddenly, silence. And that's when I noticed something worse. The doors of the village were closing. On their own. The next morning, I searched the houses. In one, I found a journal written by the village priest. The final entry read, "We were warned not to ring the bell after dusk. It is not meant for us, it is meant for them." The page beneath it had been torn out. Behind the church was a graveyard. Every grave had the same date, November 3rd, 1872. An entire village, buried in a single day, but there was something wrong. The soil. It had been disturbed from the inside. That night I didn't sleep. I waited. And when the bells rang again, I stayed inside. I don't know why. Instinct, maybe? Fear, or something deeper. Because as the bells echoed through the hollow, I began to hear something else. Footsteps. Outside my door, slow, dragging, circling the house. And then a voice, not loud, not clear, but enough to understand. "Come out." The next day I returned to the church. This time I climbed the tower. Each step creaked like it hadn't been touched in years, but when I reached the top, the bell was swaying, gently, as if it had just stopped ringing. And carved into the wood beside it were words, "Do not answer the bell." I found the torn page from the priest's journal hidden beneath the altar. It read, "The bell calls them back, not from heaven, not from hell, but from where they wait, hungry, forgotten, listening." That night I made a decision I would ring the bell myself. I needed to know. I needed proof. So I climbed the tower before dusk and waited. When darkness fell, I pulled the rope. Once, the sound echoed louder than before, deeper, alive. And then the ground below the tower moved. The graves began to open, not violently, not dramatically. Slowly, like something patient, finally being allowed to return. Hands emerged first, then faces, pale, unnatural. Eyes open, watching, and they all turned toward the church. Toward me. They weren't attacking. They weren't running. They were listening, waiting for the bell, for another call. I fled the tower and returned to the priest's room. There was one last hidden message scratched into the floorboards. The first ringing wakes them. The second lets them walk. The third. The message ended there. The bell rang again, but not by me. Something was pulling the rope, something invisible, and outside, the dead began to move. They walked through the village, into houses, through doors, like they remembered where they belonged. But something was wrong. They weren't settling in. They were searching. I ran to the tower again. I had to stop it, but as I climbed, the bell rang a third time. The sound wasn't heavy anymore. It was sharp, piercing, wrong, and below, the dead stopped all at once. Then slowly, they turned toward the tower, toward me. That's when I understood they weren't coming back to live. They were coming back to replace. I ran down the steps, through the church, into the village. But they were faster now, not dragging anymore, not slow. Aware, focused, hungry. I reached the edge of the village, and that's when I saw it. Another graveyard, beyond the trees, larger, older, filled with names. That didn't belong to this village. Black Hollow wasn't abandoned, it was renewed. Every time the bell rang 3 times, the dead replaced the living, and the living became the next graves. I had one chance: return to the tower, ring the bell again. Maybe stop it, or join them, become part of the cycle. Because I could feel it now, the pull, the call. The bell wasn't just summoning them. It was calling me too. This is my final record. If you are reading this, do not come to Black Hollow. Do not listen for the bells. And whatever you do, do not answer them, because tonight I hear them again. And this time, I think they're ringing for me. If you heard the bells, would you run or would you answer?